Casting news broke this week that immediately caught the attention of Disney fans and movie watchers alike. The upcoming live action adaptation of Tangled has found its leads. Teagan Croft has been cast as Rapunzel, with Milo Manheim stepping into the role of Flynn Rider. For a project that has quietly carried high expectations for years, the announcement feels like a turning point. Tangled isn't just another Disney title, it's one of the studio's most emotionally resonant modern animated films, blending fairy tale fantasy with humor, heart, and a surprisingly grounded coming of age story. That makes the choice of leads especially important, and that's why this casting matters. When Tangled was released in 2010, it marked a shift for Disney animation. Rapunzel wasn't a passive princess waiting to be rescued. She was curious, capable, conflicted, and emotionally layered. Flynn Rider wasn't a traditional heroic lead. He was flawed, self interested, charming, and gradually transformed by vulnerability rather than brute strength. Together, they formed a dynamic that felt modern without abandoning fairy tale roots. That balance is difficult to translate into live action. Teagan Croft brings a background that aligns closely with what made Rapunzel resonate in the first place. She's known for performances that balance strength and introspection, capable of portraying curiosity, resilience, and emotional growth without leaning into exaggeration. Rapunzel's journey isn't about rebellion for rebellion's sake, it's about self discovery, fear, trust, and the courage to step into the unknown. That requires subtlety. Milo Manheim's casting as Flynn Rider also signals intention. Flynn is a character whose appeal relies heavily on timing, charm, and the ability to pivot between humor and sincerity. He's not a fairy tale prince. He's a character who grows up over the course of the story, learning accountability and empathy through connection. Mannheim's screen presence suggests a version of Flynn that leans into warmth rather than bravado, which fits the emotional arc of the story. Together, this pairing suggests Disney isn't just recreating visuals, they're aiming to preserve tone. That's critical because Tangled holds a unique place in Disney's catalog. It arrived at a moment when audiences were ready for princess stories that acknowledged emotional complexity. Rapunzel's relationship with her mother figure is manipulative, controlling, and psychologically layered. It's one of the more mature themes Disney explored in animation, and it resonated deeply with audiences who recognized those dynamics. A live action adaptation can't afford to flatten that. The success of this film will depend on whether it respects what made the original meaningful, not just recognizable. Hair, lanterns, songs. Those elements matter, but they aren't the heart of Tangled. The heart is identity, autonomy, learning to trust your own voice. That's where casting becomes the foundation. Disney's recent history with live action adaptations has been mixed. Some projects succeed by honoring the emotional core of their animated predecessors. Others struggle when spectacle overtakes substance. With Tangled, the margin for error is smaller because the story is so character driven. This casting suggests awareness of that risk. Teagan Croft's Rapunzel isn't expected to be a carbon copy. Instead, she has the opportunity to reinterpret the character for a new generation, one that grew up with Tangled as a formative story rather than a classic fairy tale. That generational shift matters. The audience for this film isn't just children, it's adults who remember where they were when they first heard I See the Light. That nostalgia comes with expectations. Milo Manheim's Flynn Rider will also face comparison, not just to the animated version, but to the archetype Flynn helped redefine. The sarcastic, self aware romantic lead is now common. In 2010, it felt fresh. A live action adaptation must recapture that balance without feeling dated or forced. This is where chemistry will be everything. Tangled works because Rapunzel and Flynn change each other, not through grand gestures, but through small moments, shared fears, confessions, trust. That dynamic must feel natural in live action, or the story loses its emotional anchor. Disney's decision to move forward with this adaptation signals confidence in the material and the performers. It also reflects a broader trend within the studio to focus on character centric storytelling rather than spectacle alone. In a media landscape saturated with reboots and remakes, projects that prioritize emotional truth stand out. That's the opportunity here. This casting doesn't guarantee success, but it suggests intention, thoughtfulness, a willingness to let the story breathe rather than overpower it. For fans of the original film, this announcement feels like the moment the project becomes real. Casting is the first time an adaptation steps out of abstraction and into identity. Rapunzel and Flynn Rider are no longer drawings or ideas, they're performances in progress. And for Disney, This is a chance to prove that live action adaptations can still feel purposeful, not obligatory. Tangled has always been about stepping outside a tower and into uncertainty, about trusting growth over safety. In many ways, this adaptation faces the same challenge. It must step into audience expectations without being trapped by them. With Teagan Croft and Milo Manheim now attached, that journey officially begins, and whether this film becomes a standout or a footnote will depend on the same thing that made the original endure. Not how closely it looks like the animated version, but how honestly it captures the feeling of discovering who you are when the world finally opens up.